Welcome to the Healers Café, conversations on health and healing with Manon Bolliger, a retired and deregistered naturopathic physician with 30 plus years of experience. Here you will discover engaging and informative conversations between experienced healers, covering all aspects of healing, the personal journey, the journey of the practitioner, and the amazing possibilities for our own body and spirit.
So welcome to the Healers Café. And today I'm with Lisann Valentin. She is a film, TV actor, and best-selling author and shamanic amplifier who jumped from Wall Street to the red carpet while on her meditation mat. Now that's very colorful. She's an intuitive coach for professionals, this fifth generation shaman blends, the practical and the mystical to help her clients upgrade from old stories and amplify their gifts on the stage of life. So very colorful. I can so see it. All right. So why don't you start maybe, well, first of all, welcome. And why don't you start sort of explaining how that happened?
Which part?
Well, no, I mean, I guess it's just as interesting that, you were in kind of a corporate world as it is that you went on a yoga mat and that everything happened in a moment, probably because that's how all healing takes place. But your version.
Well, I'll say I like to do things in reverse a little bit. So answering the call of the shaman happened rather late, but my intuitive life and my spiritual gifts were what led me to meditation and what guided me through each stage of my journey. So even when I was practicing law on Wall Street, and then when I made the leap and became a full-time actor, and then from there being guided to write and becoming a best-selling author, all those things had the undercurrent of my intuitive gifts, my active, colorful spiritual life, and the way I decided to paint that life. And so I would say the undercurrent was the common theme. Even though my role or the label that I used to define myself at the time kept shifting. And so the law came about because I saw an actor on TV who was playing a lawyer and I wanted to do what she did. And I was told she was a lawyer. So I was like, oh, so I have to do that. That's what I have to do.
Okay, I got to interrupt you there. That is really funny. You know how I became a lawyer? That's my first stage too. I was told I could argue well. And I said, well, who does that? Lawyers. Oh, I'll become a lawyer.
There you go. Oh my gosh, how long did you practice?
Well, I actually did all my training, including up to my master's. And then I kind of got really disappointed with law in general because well, because it's easy to be, and now even more so than ever. So I didn't see what it had to do with justice.
Right. Oh.
So it was like, okay, law has very little to do with justice. Oops, wrong field.
Right.
Then I went into medicine, right? And then I realized that medicine had little to do with healing. So it's like, oh, wrong field. Go on, your story.
I think it's so interesting how old souls will jump from career to career. Like, oh, I did that. Okay, I did that. Oh, I did that. No, that's not the thing. And so we're like, oh no, this is the thing that I want to do for now until the next thing maybe comes. And we evolve and we allow ourselves to evolve and our wings to allow us, guide us where we're going to fly to next. So I think that's fabulous. I also will say, I do love when people love the law. I do love when people are very good as attorneys or very good doctors. And people just love
what they're meant to
do,
yeah,
like
exactly.
when they're in it, and and you can feel it, and it just like bounces off of them. I am riveted. It's just as good as anything I think I saw on TV as a kid. Like, I'm like, oh my God, this is delicious that you love what you do, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's interesting though, because it's the passion that they bring and that they have, which makes the art form that they do resonate, if you're going to resonate with it, right?
yeah.
Yeah. It's
And
totally.
what it does, it has a trick, it affects other people, right? Because inspired lives inspire. You see that passion and you're like, well, I want that. So now what do I need to do to allow myself to be and embody that?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah,
I don't know how we got here, but I'm very
well,
happy
anyway,
that we are here.
I was thinking of the people, Dr. David Martin. I don't know if you've heard of him, but anyway, he's just so passionate. It's incredible. And, it's a good cause, humanity in general, good cause. But just you should definitely listen to him. He's something special. It's so succinct, so clear, so connected, and like you, and from a legal perspective, you there's no flaws. It's now we don't know how the legal system will play this card, but from everything I've learned, he's doing the right thing. So we'll see,
okay.
different
I will
story.
look up Dr. David Martin. Yes.
Okay, back to you. This is going to be a very circular conversation, I can see.
I'm so excited.
Okay, so where were we?
I saw an actor on TV, and that's why I was guided into the law. And so I did that, but to rail against the machine of that, I ended up teaching. I became a teacher. So like my backup career was to be an elementary school teacher, which it's not a backup, it's a call, right? But it was my backup career at the time because I was I was like raging against the machine or whatever. So I went to do that, and I loved teaching, but I also saw how teaching in that capacity would be all absorbing, and it wasn't enough for me. There was something about even the rules within that system that was restricting to me. I could feel like I was being caged. And I think I felt the same thing in the law. When I was practicing law, I saw a lot of disparities in treatment. I saw on either side. So I was a civil defense attorney.
Oh, wow.
And then, I thought maybe I need to go on the other side and, for plaintiffs. And I was like, no, it's the same thing. It's like, it's all the same. I can't do this. And a lot of the time I was also fighting the path I'd set out for myself. And I think, and maybe this is the thing, because we set a beautiful intention at the outset that the people that need to hear this will, I had decided, with air quotes, that a linear life was successful. Or rather, that is the system I was in, and I decided to acclimate to that environment. And being linear in that way, even in the way I revolted was a linear way, a linear path, it was not serving me. And once I broke the limitations that I set on myself, a whole new world of possibilities opened. And the excuse that I gave myself was that I would try acting to be a better litigator. But really, that was just a key to a door that I had yet to unlock. Once I stepped through that door, a whole other world of possibilities opened to me. The writing that I had so loved doing my whole life finally came into play because I opened up the playful part of myself, which was with acting. So like the acting opened me back to writing. And then all the time, I found myself in conversation with the divine within me all the time, and how I structured those conversations. Again, we're breaking outside of rigidity. We're breaking outside of a set of rules. It was all about walking in the line to learn to color outside the lines. And so my life does look like coloring outside the lines, and I'm all the better for it. So by the time shamanism came into all of this, and for me to understand what my lineage was and what I learned growing up, I was like, oh, that makes sense. But when you're within, let's say you're on a highway and all the cars are moving in one direction. and you're going in that direction. You might fail to see the landscape of the world around you. You might fail to see the car that you're in, the road that you're on, the direction that you're going, the sky in front of you. And once you look around, you're like, oh, this has been here all along, just waiting for me to look up. And so that's what that felt like.
Oh, very interesting. This, yeah, I mean, I can so relate to what you're saying. And it's funny, it's a calling. And then, now I might be, not that age is a thing, but I might be older than you at this stage of this life. I wonder if that happens again, because I felt so much like the calling to go into naturopathic medicine, specifically into homeopathy. That was like, I really wanted to get how that works. It just felt innate. It felt logical. It felt holistic. It felt integral, everything about it. And so, and nobody told me from my family that my grandfather was a homeopath, and that in Switzerland he had a, tuberculosis sanatorium. And so I went through, the whole pre-med 4 years for naturopathy, graduated, then did 8 years of homeopathy specialization. And, I'm there. I'm now doing my passion, which I still love, right? But, and we'll say things kind of shifted. And then I was told, oh, by the way, this is in your ancestry. And it's like, oh, like, gosh, like, I don't know, would it made a difference if I had known earlier? I don't know. It felt like the path, and then with just the way life happens, here in BC, we're under extreme censorship and you can't share anything. So I managed to lose the legal aspect of it that allows me to practice. Let's put it in those simple words. But I feel like, even though that's a fight to be had, if I wanted whatever, I don't know, I don't feel called. I feel like there's a new calling, and I'm in that what is it calling stage. Anyway, so I just thought you found this next level of you, right, in what you're doing. And now, I mean, I probably had to get over some things to allow it to like go into it fully, right? To just, like you write in your bio that it took the courage to release old limiting beliefs about your intuition, your spirituality, and your heritage. And I read that and I went, interesting. Could you expand on that and share what that process was really like?
Oh, I will say there's been cycles, right?
Yeah.
This is the caveat. If people love to talk about awakenings, right? And I love hearing about it. And I also want to say, and it won't be the only time, like it's not going to just be the one. Like there's cycles and cycles and cycles if you're open. Until your last breath, the evolution of you willingly will expand into that space. And so, as a child, I was very intuitive. I was very open and free. I would talk to, so I have no problem using the word God, but I use it interchangeably with the divine, with source, like my higher self. All of it is fine with me. So whatever resonates with those listening, disregard anything that doesn't feel good. But for me, all of it feels fine, even though I grew up within a rigid construct. And so my parents weren't super religious, but they put me in a religious institution, like in a school, right? And I went to Catholic school for years. And then on the flip side, I had an aunt who was very Christian, so Pentecostal, so Protestant. And so she was opposed to my Catholicism. So I grew up with like two really rigid structures that were opposed in some ways. And I was always railing against like, but why? But I don't understand. And I would just like always argue. I would argue because it didn't feel good in my body. there were parts that felt really good that I learned. I learned a lot about prayer. I learned a lot about song as prayer. Or even a nun taught me how to meditate. And like that blew my mind because I saw the connection between meditation and prayer. And while some people consider prayer to be petitioning and meditation to be receiving, I consider it to be both. I consider it to be right? It's just this flow back and forth, the greater I am in me talking to me. And so I saw those connections really young, really little. And I was just very open to speaking to the divine, but I was not open to the structures I was learning within my family because that looked like another form of rigidity. So let me expand. There was psychic development. There was working with medicinal plants. There was a lot there. Energy's moving. I can see. There was a lot there that I didn't understand and I had no context for. So I didn't understand what the tarot was about. I didn't understand when my grandmother was channeling. I didn't understand the laying on of the hands. I felt good, but I didn't understand what that meant. And because there was no religion, it was we would put our hands, my grandmother would put her hands on my grandfather would put his hands on our foreheads, my mother would do it to us, and then we would just breathe into that space and all of a sudden we'd feel better. And I didn't know what it was, but that felt okay. Like it wasn't the same as like oracle cards or like all the other divination things, because within my family, I was taught to be afraid of it.
Interesting.
Because they weren't going to teach me. It was like, you were going to learn or not, and that's it. Like it wasn't going to be the structured thing, but so it was so rigid, like only the adults and only us, and you stay over here and stay away because you don't know what could happen. And I was like, oh, this is terrifying. Who wants to be in that? And that's so freaking scary, you know? And then in church, I would hear like that was wrong. And then that was bad. And then, you know, in my aunt's church, I would hear that all of it was wrong and bad, even the church I was going to. So like, there was so much wrong, there was so much bad, and I didn't want to be wrong or bad. So breaking from the illusion of me being wrong, me being bad, not good enough, or too much were the illusions I had to break to allow myself to just be free and to own my gifts.
Right.
And not to be afraid of like the different levels of clairs that were popping up all the time. Because I was like, who is talking to me? Why am I seeing that? Like it was always like safety, safety, safety. So the biggest thing I had to learn was that I was safe within myself.
Yeah.
That I was only a conduit of love, of ultimate love. And therefore only love could interact or engage with me. And I need not be afraid of love. I needed to just change the lenses I was looking at it with. And once I did that, like, oh my God, I can't even tell you, like, I'm not even the same person I was in. If me from then listened to me from now, she'd be like, Lisann is crazy. Like she would not be on this boat with me, but I'm thankful for her. She gave me a beautiful foundation to see the life that I could have lived if I continued that way. And she gave me the courage to be me so I could be who I am now.
Manon Bolliger here, and I want to thank you for taking actionable steps towards engaging your healing journey and helping others discover their path by watching, sharing, subscribing, and reviewing these podcasts. Every review and share helps spread the word, these different perspectives and choices and options for healing. And to thank you, I'd like to invite you to sign up to my free 7-sequence email tips on health and healing for everyday life. You can go to healerscafe.com tips. Thanks so much.
And that's what breaking the rigidity, breaking the old stories looks like for me. So by the time the shaman came to me within that space between sleep and wake, and that like theta, and asked me if I was ready to answer the call, and my heart said yes, like unabashedly said yes, even though I didn't know what that word meant at the time because we didn't use that word in my family. I woke up and I was like, what did I say yes to? What does this mean? And then it was like, welcome to the new reality. Welcome to your new life, you know?
So let me ask you on that. So and I appreciate the way you describe the letting go, the inner work, basically, of questioning everything and coming back to a deeper knowing of you have it all. It's all within you if you only became more of you.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a freeing, like I think you express that very clearly. But how did you the next day, let's say you've said yes, and in that experience of that type of dreaming, and you feel good, and the next day you still have thoughts, you still have beliefs, you might see them for what they are because you've done the work. So you go, oh, here they are again, thank you very much. We don't need you at this moment.
Right.
But how what happened? What, like, propelled or allowed, or what was the energy with which you moved forward?
So this is what immediately happened after I said yes with all this peace and love flowing through me. My human woke up and said, what is that? What did I say yes to? What kind of contract did I just enter into? Oh my God, old fears, right? Boom, right in front of me. And so the journey was for me to finally allow myself to let go of the hand of fear, who had been my companion, my dutiful companion for most of my life. I made many courageous leaps, but some of the most important leaps I needed to make, I was gripping fear's hand. And fear was gripping me right back, saying, I've got you, right? We're like walking hand in hand, like we're going to just be together and you don't have to do anything that makes you feel the intensity of what that could mean or what could happen. So I understood that my role, I needed to let go of fear's hand. Fear was only going to, so I'm talking about fear like it's a person, but personifying it allows me to actually see the process of like releasing my fingers, right?
Yeah.
And then using my hands with gratitude to say thank you and release it. And that was an emotional journey because I was in partnership with fear for so long. And it was like literally this grieving process. And so I ended up actually working with a shaman who I'd heard on this app called Clubhouse. And and the more I listened to him, I was like, oh, this is what my grandfather used to do. And this is what like his grandmother taught him. And I was like, wait, does my culture have something like this? So I started digging. My human brain was like, we're going to do research and we're going to either disprove or prove that this is real, right?
The lawyer.
Right, exactly. And so, yeah, so the Taino, my indigenous heritage as a Puerto Riqueña, we have Taino, and that's been almost like disappeared within our culture, right? Like we never talked about it. We never had labels for anything, but this was part of that lineage. And our shamans were called Boitiu or Beike. Boitiu were the ones who would dance between realms and get all the downloads, and the Beike were the teachers, right? So they would congregate with the Boitios, and then they would teach the people of the tribe, learning all of that with this gift of answering a call, things that no one had told me. I just saw the patterns in my family, like, oh, we were doing this always. Like this made no sense at the time until I met the shaman. The shaman walked me through a process of energy work where I got to look and face fears that had nothing to do with this lifetime at all. So this is where we get super mystical, right? Because I was always aware of other timelines. As a child, even I could see different, I want to say épocas in Spanish, different, I guess.
Epochs.
Yeah, whatever. And I just didn't know. I just thought I was imagining it, you know? And then I came to understand what I was seeing. And now in this space, I was able to untangle from the story that I would be killed, that I would be maimed, that I would be made to feel like I was a liar, or that I would disappoint my family, and all the different archetypes I played. And untangling from that was a huge release. And then it wasn't just like the session, it's like integration, right? What does life look like after you've gone through the processes? And even before, the minute you engage with an energy healer, whatever their label is, your highest self goes to work. Okay. The minute you decide, things start shifting and moving. It just happens that way. And so before the session, in the session, and after the session, I started seeing things unfold and change, and like shadow work, right? Things coming up and allowing me to see what else I need to let go of, what else, and how much baggage I could drop. And the more I did that, the more room I made for the light. the more love poured into me, the more my gifts expanded. And then the more I wanted to share this. So I knew I needed to, I was going to wait a little bit before I shared anything because I had a process to go through. But it looked like this intense process of letting go of a relationship I had my whole life. And yeah, it was as intense and beautiful as it sounds.
Yeah. And I love the, it's not an analogy. I guess maybe it is. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but fear as what you're holding on to as a person, because yeah, I never saw it that way, but it really hits home, because often we, culturally, we're also told, okay, see your fear and do it anyways. But basically what that implies is that we're walking with our fear. We're not changing anything. We're just playing deep within the field of fear, of which we have wins. Sometimes we overcome, but our focus is still in relation to our partnership with fear, right? So when you say let go the hand of fear, it's like suddenly, whoa, not even it is part of the field.
Yes.
So you're in your own field now suddenly, or whatever field is there.
Yes. And you can choose not to. I mean, there are people that do choose to walk with fear as their companion, and they do it anyway. I'm not saying to minimize anyone's experience either. You're only ready for whatever you're ready for, and that's fine.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Right. But for me, it was like I was on a death grip with fear. And I was like, I need to let your hand go, because it was me doing it. So fear wasn't like this nemesis, right?
Yeah.
It was me.
Right. Yeah. You projecting it so much. Yeah.
Yeah. And once you're in your sovereignty, what that feels like, the only word that I keep repeating, and I know maybe it's annoying at this point, but it is love. It is the ultimate feeling of just unconditional love. And there's so much joy and peace and bliss in that, that you're so in the moment, you're so in the now, that there's no room to hold any other hand.
Right.
This is like you're in an embrace with yourself this whole time. You can't hold anyone else's hand through this, so yeah.
Wow. Oh, you have an incredible, well, I'm very graphic, so I really appreciate the poetic graphic imaging that you have. I'm just painting it right in front of us. It's quite amazing.
I'm glad it's helpful.
Well, it's enjoyable. I don't know if it's helpful. It's very enjoyable. So maybe a couple more questions for you. So how long have you, I don't know if is it a self-identified, or it's you have now realized, I don't know what the right word is, that you are a shaman?
When did I realize it? When I answered the call. It's been 3 years.
Okay. And are you working with people?
Oh yeah.
At this stage? Yeah.
So I do take on clients, but I still have my mentors.
Right, of course.
Because
it's a
there's
process.
always, it's always growing, and I love it. I love the constant exploration, especially now. There's so much shifting and changing. It feels like tangible, like the air feels different. There's just so much. And I guess you could say that about anything. So like pull back the mystical stuff. When you create change in your life and you really feel like you're owning who you are as a person, it is like the air around you has shifted. It is like you look like a different person. It is like you feel like a different person. You feel like powerful, like Wonder Woman or Superman or whatever. Like you just feel different because you're stepping into a new you. And so I feel like a lot of us are in that space, regardless of whatever labels, but
backgrounds,
right. But the people that come to me are typically people who are, I keep hearing, who are ready to let go of fear's hand, who are ready to do that, right? And to just like embrace themselves more. Yeah, it's funny. I keep hearing you like, just say that again.
Talk about your target market and your story. So I've taken too many marketing courses.
Oh my gosh, for the life of me, I don't think I could do another one of those. Oh.
Yeah. But it's very interesting. Marketing is like the simplified version of, and this is a complicated thought, it may take a moment to come down, but it's like our relationship with clients
Mm-hmm.
and our ability to serve them at the highest level.
Mm-hmm.
When you really embrace that, I have heard the best translation of that in marketing, because so many healers are like, I'm not saying you should have ego, but there's either lots of ego and then that's a different story. But it's like such a selfless way of being that sometimes you don't see the bigger picture of what you're in. And so when I took marketing, it was sort of like, oh, that's what they're talking about. That's what this is. And it was a very interesting dance. Definitely not going to be a marketer, but it was I love just exploring life, and opening to what shows up and comes, and and playing right with it. That's, I think, probably one of the biggest joys.
Mm-hmm. Playing
And I
with it,
think,
yeah.
when you say you're in your, like, your freedom, and therefore in love, and you are enveloped, I mean, that is life, right? How you live is how you heal, and vice versa, and it keeps going. It's one happy circle. So
Yeah.
at least that's what I'm feeling from you.
It is. It's funny. Like, I could laugh. I totally laugh at myself all the time because there was some show on TV and my mother and my sister were watching it. And so now, again, this is my lineage, but they didn't answer the call. Their actually modalities are to work more with plants and like making teas and and that sort of approach. Don't give me a plant, it will not live, but like give it to them. They're great. Their magic is really aligned with that. And there was a woman on TV, and she's a very like hippie type of character. And she's like, I was outside in the garden and a butterfly was talking to me, and now I understand what the butterfly was trying to say. And the other people on the show are like, what are you talking about? Like, they were just like not with her. And I looked at my family, I go, that's like talking to me, right? Like, that's what I do. I tell you about my experience with the butterfly and I make the connection. And they're like, yeah, you're just like her. And I'm like, you know what? I can honor that. I can honor that not everyone is gonna align with someone who feels the messages of the butterflies, like has a profound experience. That's okay. Like, that's why we need both. It's yes,
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
right.
Exactly.
You can take this
Exactly.
and this beautiful painted story, and then you can combine it with something super practical. And within that space, that union, therein lies growth. Therein lies a message that will shift and change you, because it's a combination of modalities. And that's the reason why we're talking, because you, with your background, with all these beautiful linear ways of healing, you found yourself within that space. And so it doesn't negate the things that we learned. It actually helps quite a bit.
Yeah.
It helps people in that linear world function and be not just function. I withdraw that word. Allows them to amplify who they are and fully align with the love that is them, because they have someone who completely understands them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's the basis of healing. Is that absolute complete connection of being, I want to use the word seen, but I know that is not really the full meaning of it. It's like seen / understood /
also
felt.
held.
Hell.
No, you say, yeah.
Okay. All right. We are out of time, but I'm going to leave you with the last few words. How would you like to conclude this discussion. It's really just discussion. It actually doesn't need a conclusion, but I'm offering it in case. How could we get hold of you? Maybe something practical.
You can just find me on my website, lgvalentin.com, and all the links, all the things are there. And I look forward to meeting anyone who feels like they want to walk along with me and talk to the butterflies.
Perfect. Well, thanks very much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us at the Healers Café with Manon Bolliger. Continue your healing journey by visiting thehealerscafe.com and her website, and discover how to listen to your body and reboot for optimal health.